This is Janet Swerdlow with another edition of Expansions.com weekly podcast. And we are going into the first week of May 2017 with, again, lots of news building upon a lot of the trends that I've been telling you about already. So ears open on this one. I want to start with President Donald Trump, of course, celebrating his first 100 days in office. And how did he celebrate that? He held a campaign-style rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and he touted his record in taking aim at the national media. Now, when did he choose to do this? Of course, the same day as the annual White House Correspondents Association dinner. So, during Trump's rally, he said, quote, "As you know, there's another big gathering taking place tonight in Washington, D.C. Did you hear about this? A large group of Hollywood actors and Washington media are consoling each other in a hotel ballroom in our nation's capital right now. They are gathered together for the White House Correspondents' Dinner without the president," unquote. And then he went in to talk about the media, calling them about going further into his fake news diatribe. Quote, "Media outlets like CNN and MSNBC are fake news, fake news. They would love to be with us tonight, but they're trapped at the dinner, which will be very, very boring." Then he went on to say that the media had earned, quote, "a very, very big fat failing grade. The Washington media is part of the problem. Their priorities are not my priorities, and they're not your priorities, believe me," unquote. So he's trying to, again, let you know that you can't trust the media, but you can trust him. So he is setting up the mass population to imprint that you have to trust Trump. Anyway, back in Washington, D.C., as the dinner kicked off, Jeff Mason, who's president of the White House Correspondents Association, said, quote, "It is our job to report on facts and to hold leaders accountable. That is who we are. We are not fake news. We are not failing news organizations, and we are not the enemy of the American people," unquote. So they want to focus your attention here while they're doing something else over there, and that's what happens with the mass media and everybody else that's going on. And then we have Hassan Minhaj, who is the Daily Show correspondent and the evening's host at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, that said the evening would be very interesting without the president there. And then he went on to say, quote, "We've got to address the elephant that's not in the room. The leader of our country is not here, and that's because he lives in Moscow. It's a very long flight. It would be hard for Vlad to make it. As for the other guy, I think he's in Pennsylvania because he can't take a joke," unquote. And then he warned those in the news business that they had to be at the top of their game because Trump views them as, quote, "public enemy number one." So again, divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. That's always the way that they've been doing, and they're continuing it. Then Minhaj continued. Let's see. "In the age of Trump, I know that you guys have to be more perfect now more than ever because you are how the president gets his news," unquote. And I want to say, I don't think so. I don't think this is how the president gets his news. For example, even Stewart and I traveled, Stewart more so than I, around the world, and we talked to people in their region to understand what's going on, because what you read in the newspapers is not the news you get. So I really highly doubt that the President of the United States gets his news in the same way that you supposedly get your news. So then back to Trump at his rally, and he says, quote, "As you know, I've been a big critic of China, and I've been talking about currency manipulation for a long time." Now, I want to stop you right there because I want to say, is he really a big critic of China? For example, he just hosted the president here. His grandchildren, the children of Ivanka, are learning Chinese since they were like 18 months old. And in China, of course, Ivanka is considered a goddess. So do you really think that he's a big critic of China? I don't think so. And not only that, Ivanka's buying a lot of her product over there, and they're naming their, they have products that are put in to be named after her. So I really don't think he's a big critic of China. But let's continue. He also says, quote, "So we have currency manipulation by China, but China is helping us possibly or probably with the North Korean situation. It's a great thing," unquote. I'm going to come back to the North Korean situation in a bit, but I want you to keep that in mind what he's telling you. Then we go back to the Correspondence Dinner, and the host, Minhaj, says, "Only in America can a first-generation Indian American Muslim kid get on this stage and make fun of the president. It's a sign to the rest of the world it's this amazing tradition that even the president is not beyond the reach of the First Amendment," unquote. So we will see. But it is all a show. And then, speaking of North Korea, Pope Francis has to weigh in, apparently aboard the papal plane. He said that a third country, such as Norway, should try to mediate the dispute between North Korea and Washington to cool a situation that had become too hot and posed the risk of nuclear devastation. Francis said that he believes a good part of humanity would be destroyed in any widespread war. So here we have more fear-mongering. And of course you have to trust the Pope, right? Then he said he was ready to meet U.S. President Donald Trump when he's in Europe next month, but that he was not aware that Washington had made a request for a meeting. So he said that the United Nations should reassert its leadership in world diplomacy because it had become too watered down. United Nations, one world government, Pope Francis, okay? Now, the end of May, Trump is due in Sicily in Italy for a meeting of the heads of the world's richest nations. The White House has not yet said if he would be stopping in Rome to meet the Pope, which would be an unusual omission for a visiting head of state. Then, asked if he would be meeting Trump, the Pope said that he had not yet been informed if a request had been made, but he wants you to know, quote, that I receive every head of state who asks for an audience, unquote. So we want to see what happens the end of May if Trump meets with the Pope, because this will again be a part of the show for you. Now, again, going back to North Korea, I want you to remember back in December of 2013, which I actually reported on this, that Dennis Rodman, NBA basketball player, arrived with several others who they called old-timers in North Korea for a basketball game. Okay, so he was shown parading all over the place with Kim Jong-Un, and at the time he was slammed for not using his influence with Kim to help free Kenneth Bae, the ill missionary who was being confined for anti-state crimes. Critics of Rodman, world diplomatic leaders among them, said he wasted his rare proximity to the ruthless leader of Kim Jong-un, to whom he even sang happy birthday at a basketball game that he arranged. Now, this I thought was very interesting to me because is Dennis Rodman a basketball player or a diplomat? So why would he talk about something that is diplomatic unless he was there on a diplomatic mission, which of course they told you he was there to play basketball, which at the time I thought was very, very strange. Now at, let me see, because this is kind of an interesting story. And continuing on with North Korea show that's going on still to this day, because I believe he was an agent sent there to set things up for what's happening now. So anyway, this story was back in 2014. He was started in going there for basketball games December 2013. Directly after, in the first part of the year 2014, it said his recent visit became controversial after an agitated, drunken Rodman gave an interview to CNN from North Korea in which he suggested that Kenneth Bae, a seriously ill American missionary imprisoned in North Korea, was responsible for his own imprisonment. So why would he say that if he didn't know something? And also appearing agitated and drunken, perhaps he was programmed and drugged. Did you ever think about that? And then it went on to say that Rodman and Kim struck up a friendship when he first traveled to the secretive state back in 2013. He was 52 years old when this happened. And he also denied that he was an alcoholic. Now, when he came back, he spent 3 weeks in a New Jersey-based rehab facility after he returned from North Korea. And I'm going to say why. Because he's denying he's an alcoholic. Why are they putting him in a rehab center? And then on top of that, he said he would return to the rehab center every 6 months to see where he's at. To me, that sounds like a programming center. And Rodman goes on to say, I'm not an alcoholic. An alcoholic drinks 7 days a week. I don't drink 7 days a week. When I drink, I don't hurt nobody. I don't have no DUIs, nothing like that. I did not go to rehab for drinking. There aren't too many people who quit drinking going to rehab. Not too many people can do that, unquote. So why did he go to rehab? Then they also talked, let's see, oh, they said that he wept This is again March 2014. He wept as he told ESPN that he never meant to hurt anyone with 2 trips to the repressive nation. Now he had sunglasses and he had tears running behind the sunglasses. You can watch the clips because the links will be posted. So why was he crying? So to me that sounds like a setup thing. I mean, it's 52 years old. Why would you be crying over this? It just doesn't make sense to me. And then he said in February of 2014, this happened in March, but back in February, he said he intended to return to North Korea to see his friend Kim Jong-Un, but now he says he'll stay away if that's what people want. And so that's what he said in March. So again, I think that what's going on in North Korea obviously was planned many years ago, and Dennis Rodman knows a lot of things, and I think that he was programmed, and I think that he delivered messages, and anyway, he probably went back into the so-called rehab center to get his mind wiped. That's what I think. So let's go on to President Trump now. So back to Trump. We have the CEO of JP Morgan tweeting that President Trump has awoken, quote, animal spirits. If Trump gets it done, even part of it, it will be good for growth, good for jobs, good for Americans, and I'm really confident he will get that done. Why would the CEO of JP Morgan say that President Trump has awoken animal spirits? So I would love to hear what you have to think about that, because I keep telling you about the New World Order and the New World Religion and how you are being set up. Animal spirits are part of New World Religion. And in New World Religion, you combine your political leaders and your religion. So it seems he's woken up the animal spirits. This is what's been quoted. Then we have, of course, one of my favorite topics at the moment, and probably yours, is Ivanka Trump. First daughter, which I think that's a very inappropriate title, because we're not hearing about the first lady, we're now hearing about the first daughter. This is how they open the frequencies. You know, first lady, so instead of lady, they're changing it to daughter. Made her first international appearance on the president's behalf at W220 Summit in Berlin. Now, this was on the equality and empowerment of women in Berlin alongside many female world leaders, and critics complained that she had become too closely involved in her father's affairs. And one critic said, imagine if Hillary Clinton met with Merkel and Chelsea Clinton was seated next to her for an official meeting. How would you feel about that? So, back to the summit in Berlin. It says that she received an icy response from audience members when discussing her father's policies of women in the workplace. She was discussing the lack of paid leave policies and how proud she was of her father's advocacy for paid leave. And then there became hissing and boos from the audience. This is the report. However, they said on the video you can't hear the hissing and booing. But the moderators broke in and said to her, quote, you hear the reaction from the audience, so I need to address one more point, going on to discuss whether the president's past attitude might reflect on his record of women. So to me, again, this all sounds very staged, because why don't we hear the hissing and booing? And Ivanka just keeps going on saying, well, I've certainly heard the criticism from the media, and that's been perpetuated, but I know from personal experience, and I think the thousands of women who have worked with and for my father for decades, when he was in the private sector, are a testament to his belief and solid conviction in the potential of women, unquote. Now, I was raised in the 60s when women's liberation and women's rights were really coming to the forefront. And I will tell you right now that I see things with a different eye than perhaps you do. But if my father had said the things about me that her father said about her, I would not call his views on women liberating at all. I would call them very sexist and repressing. So if this was really an honest question, and this was an honest conference, that is the question that they would be asking her. How do you feel about what your father has said about you? But that was not asked, and that was not answered. Then when she was on a German interview with NBC News, apparently there were headlines in Germany that described her, quote, as a loyal accomplice to her father. And she said, unquote, I don't like the word accomplice because in this context, I don't know that that's productive, she said, unquote. So again, like I said, if it was honest, they would be saying to her, what about this and what about that? But that's not going to happen. You will not see that in the news, but keep that in the back of your mind. We have then comments about her. Conservative radio host Rick Wiles, who is actually a Christian pastor, and hosts a True News radio program and used to be a steadfast Trump supporter until the administration did their airstrikes on Syria, killing women and children. Anyway, he put out a statement on one of his radio shows where he attacked Ivanka and her husband for their Orthodox Judaism religion, saying their positions within the administration are aiding, quote, the deep state cabal in the White House, unquote. Then he went on to compare Ivanka to the daughter of Herod, a biblical figure who convinced her father to behead John the Baptist. Wiles continued, quoting him, "She's a Kabbalah-practicing evil woman, whispering evil things in the ear of her father. She's going to the gravesite of an old dead Kabbalah practitioner and getting spirits telling her what to do. We have to pray against witchcraft in high places, witchcraft that plans to kill millions of people. Ivanka and Jared are cleaning out the White House to surround President Trump with their Kabbalah practitioners, and the only advice he is going to get will be from people who are evil, and the church is letting this happen," unquote. So a lot of things going on out there, and here is another reference to getting spirits to tell her what to do. Somebody else, J.P. Morgan, said that Trump is awakening animal spirits. So again, keep that phrase in mind. And interestingly enough, here in the U.S., Ivanka Trump is viewed unfavorably by young women. So I'd say that's between the ages of 18 and 34. I'd say that's great. However, while in China, we talked about this a week or two ago, that she's viewed as a goddess. But here, not so popular. Then, CNN commentator Amanda Carpenter said that Ivanka is becoming like Hillary Clinton in the worst ways and is an insult to working women. So I would say she's an insult to women in general, because I would not want my father saying things about me that her father has said about her, and that needs to be addressed. And on the issue of the Trump marriage itself, it says that Donald Trump has been critiqued over his body language and etiquette toward his wife Melania since his inauguration. It said a photo of the couple disembarking Air Force One on April 18 reignited debate over his alleged disregard for the First Lady. So if he has such respect for women, why isn't he treating his own wife better? That's my question. The viral photo shows the president saluting people at the bottom of the airplane stairs while Melania is still descending far behind him. And then in this particular article, it shows pictures of other presidents coming down the stairs with their wives holding hands, their arms are around each other, but there's this big distance. And again, it's all set up and staged. It's not like, he's purposefully ignoring her. His handlers are telling him what to do. So that's all they're doing. They're following a script. Communication and body language expert Susan Constantine said, "If you didn't know that they were married, you wouldn't know that they are married," unquote. And now, following up on that, we have the New York Times post that apparently identified Ivanka as Donald Trump's wife. So then they had to clarify that, saying, quote, "Because of an editing error, an earlier version of this article misidentified Ivanka Trump as President Trump's wife," unquote. His wife is Melania. Ivanka is one of his daughters. Final quote, New York Times. Okay, so they're putting all this out there for a reason. It's part of the show. And then it goes on and quotes some of the things that I've already said. The president's first wife was Ivana Trump, Ivanka's mother, although he has also at times professed, quote, that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her, unquote, incest. Moving back, December 2016, Julia Ioffi's political contract was terminated after she tweeted either Trump is F.U. blank blanking his daughter, or he's shirking nepotism laws, which is worse, unquote. Okay, so everybody's talking about this incest, okay? Anyway, supposedly then she apologized, but she was still fired. And then this particular article goes on to remind you of what things he said. Quote, "Yeah, she's really something. What a beauty, that one. If I weren't happily married and her father," unquote. And of course, the other quote, "Is it wrong to be more sexually attracted to your own daughter than your wife?" Unquote. So, leaving the Trumps behind, because I'm sure we will have a lot more news with them as his term progresses, and this is just the first 100 days. Remember, I told you that live murder is part of New World religion. Sacrificial things are going to be happening. And here's another couple more live murders on Facebook. Thai man broadcasts daughter's murder live on Facebook. He filmed himself killing his 11-month-old daughter in 2 video clips posted on Facebook before committing suicide. The videos of the child's murder on her father's Facebook page was up for approximately 24 hours until it was taken down in Bangkok. I won't say anything about the name of the city, Bangkok, about a day after being uploaded. Now, before that, Facebook said it was reviewing how it monitored violent footage and other objectionable material after the posting of the fatal shooting of a man in Cleveland, Ohio, which I told you all about that ritual killing. I was visible for 2 hours before being taken down. This one in Thailand shows this man tying a rope to his daughter's neck, dropping her from the rooftop of a deserted building in the Thai seaside town of Phuket. And then his suicide, which wasn't broadcast, they found his lifeless body beside his daughter and said that he was having paranoia about his life leaving him and not loving him, blah, blah, blah. So, I had that one. That's a baby. Now we have a 21-year-old man, Jamel Chandler, who is suspected in a livery car driver's robbery, who was terrified when police came to his door. So he tried to climb out of his 11-story window. Remember, I talked to you, and I think it was last week, about the elite global rituals. If you didn't watch that news podcast, go back and review, because I talked to you about the number 11. This man had an 11-month-old daughter. This man was climbing out an 11-story window. So keep all this in mind. Now, the Thai man had a rope around the daughter's neck. This man was climbing down a rope from an 11-story window. The rope didn't hold his weight, and he fell to his death. Now, this was also very odd to me, because apparently this man, Jamel Chandler, posted under the name of Mel DiCaprio. And then he posted, quote, supposedly, "Cops is at my door. They're looking for me right now. They're about to arrest me. I'm going to get arrested. They're about to lock me up. Tune in, tune in, tune in." Then apparently somehow or another the police got word of this, and how they got word, because this guy is posting under another name on Facebook, I don't know. But apparently this guy continues on live broadcast, supposedly. "I'm about to go to jail. I ain't been home a whole month. I'm about to jump out the window. I'm on the 11th floor. I'm about to jump, bro, jump. If you want to jump, let me know. They right there, bro." Unquote. So, as I said, the police officers supposedly stayed outside the door. Some officers rushed to the ground. They saw him fall from the 7th floor. And then they went on to say he had just gotten out of prison. He was staying with a friend and sleeping on a couch. So how did he get this fake Facebook account set up so fast? How did they find him? You know, why was it under a different name? To me, it's a lot of weird things going on. And then as I was thinking about that, I was remembering about that Ohio man. You might remember he was in a triple homicide. He was alleged murder in a triple homicide. Now, this man was 48 years old, and I've talked to you about the 4884, which is going around as well, who's seen being escorted out of the courthouse by officers on his way back to the county jail. This was in Ohio. He was not being restrained except for a brace worn under his pant leg, which was meant to keep him from running. However, they show you live that he darts to the balcony and jumps over. So if this is supposed to keep him from running, then how did he dart to the balcony and jump over? He was accused of raping a 10-year-old girl. So pedophilia. He was 48. The girl was 10. Okay, and of course they say basically that showed that he knew his defense would be unsuccessful, so basically he killed himself. So we're, as I've been telling you, watching more and more people closer to death. And then I saw this one about, this was in India, surveillance footage that showed a bicyclist narrowly escaping his demise after a massive truck flew off the highway above him. However, it killed another driver in its path. So, again, we have more live death that you are seeing all the time to desensitize you to it. And I also told you, remember, about ex-NFL player Aaron Hernandez, who supposedly committed suicide in his cell. And I told you about how that well, I guess they supposedly, I don't know what happened. I didn't see the pictures. I wasn't there. But John 3:16 on his forehead. And I said, how does somebody even write that up there? Now they're claiming that before he committed suicide using his own blood, is like, how did he get enough blood to do all this, and where did it come from? And then how did he manage to hang himself after he got his own blood out? Because that would take a lot of, a lot out of you, I would think. I don't know. Anyway, he used his own blood to scrawl symbols on the prison wall before he committed suicide. So part of it was an all-seeing eye, similar of God, that's similar on the back of the U.S. dollar bill, as well as an unfinished pyramid with the word Illuminati written underneath it. Now, one article said there was no suicide note, and then on subsequent articles that say there were notes left and people were wanting to see the notes and they haven't been released yet. And of course his family and his attorney are saying he was not suicidal. So I happen to agree. But anyway, that's what's being reported. Who knows what's really going on? But maybe the president knows because he gets his news just like you do, right? Which I don't believe. And then, speaking of all the programming and imprinting that's going on, there's a new trend, it says, and if it's not new, it will be, simply because people are talking about it. And this is called, quote, showing your butt, B-U-T-T, in landscapes. Okay, now again, when I was growing up, B-U-T-T, butt was, of course, that's short for buttocks. People probably have forgotten that by now. But the term butt was not considered very polite or socially acceptable. And now, of course, it's all over the place. We would call it a behind or a derriere, but now it's a butt. Well, you know what? A goat butts. And a goat is a symbol for Baphomet, which is an astral entity that is worshipped by people who worship such things. Global handlers, global elite, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, doesn't really matter. So I thought this was interesting because it's a way of opening the frequency literally. Now, I told you last week, or I think maybe it was 2 weeks ago, about the jeans that were zipping from the top to the bottom in the back. So that's more B-U-T-T. We have Kim Kardashian all over the place with her wide derriere. They want everybody to see everybody's butts now. Well, goat's butt. The goat is an Illuminati symbol. So now they want you to drop your drawers, your pants, and show your butt in a landscape area and publish this all over the world. And people are doing this. And so, again, I put into Google showing your butt in landscapes, and I got 11 million hits. So that's how much people are doing it. So it's out there. And even though you might think it's kind of crazy, this connection, but it's there, or I wouldn't be seeing it. And then continuing on with the pedophilia and having you imprinted with that, you might be aware that, thankfully, Elizabeth Thomas, the 15-year-old Tennessee girl who was, I will say, kidnapped by a 50-year-old teacher, was finally found in Northern California. So just seeing these things, it's imprinting you with older men and younger women. And we talked I think it was last week or the week before, I'm not sure, about Celine Dion, who was a young girl with an older man. She was 12 years old when she met her future husband, who was 38, although she claims she didn't start dating him until she was 18 or 19, which would have made him about 45 years old. So to me, that's still pedophilia. And now, of course, she's sleeping with her 6-year-old male twin boys in a huge bed she bought for this purpose. So, and I asked you last week, what imprinting does this have on the boys? What is that saying to you about pedophilia? So keep that in mind as I tell you the next story. So the next story is about France. You may have heard that Emmanuel Macron is the front runner in the French presidential elections. And have you been reading about his wife, Brigitte? Now, Brigitte, it says, could become one of the country's most unusual first ladies. And that's saying something because French first ladies have made headlines for extramarital affairs, treason, and even murder. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Brigitte is 24 years older than the presidential candidate. Now, that, you might say, is not so unusual because Trump is 24 years older than Melania Trump. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Same age difference, but this time one is a man and a woman. This time we have a woman and a man. Now the interesting thing about Brigitte is that she was 39 years old when she met her husband, who at the time was only 15. To me, pedophilia. And what is this young man's name? Emmanuel. Okay, so keep that in mind because I'm going to have a story about that later on as well. So Emmanuel is another name for Jesus, right? So, 39 years old, he was 15. She was a drama coach at a private school when the teenager began acting in her theater pieces. Eventually, their relationship developed into a romantic one, so she divorced her husband and the father of her 3 kids for this young 15-year-old man. And this is who's going to be, supposedly, if this goes through, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if this Emmanuel Macron becomes the next president of France. Anyway, the candidate is now 39 years old, the age that his wife was when he met her. And his wife is now 63, and he thanks her for always being there. And of course, her supporters say that he can't do anything without her. So to me, that's a handler. It says their task, if elected, will be to keep their odd personal history from becoming a distraction. I'm sorry, pedophilia. And then moving along on all this imprinting that's going on, you just have to know what's happening so you can pull it together like what I'm doing for you. Josh Duggar, our ex-TLC star, is forced to testify the names of all the women he slept with. Now, Josh Duggar, who shattered his family's conservative Christian image after news broke that he frequented adultery site Ashley Madison, will be forced to testify under oath about all of his sexual encounters and communications stemming from the website. He also used the general dating site called OkCupid while he was married to his wife Anna for nearly a decade. Now, the lawsuit was actually brought by a man named Matthew McCarthy, a man whose photos Josh used on his dating profiles. He claims that his subsequent association with Josh, 29, 2 plus 9, there's another 11, has damaged his personal and professional reputation. I would say yes, if this person even exists. It might just be to keep this in front of the public. Now, I want you to listen to this next thing. In addition to his extramarital affairs, which news broke in 2015, it was also brought out that Josh molested 4 of his sisters and a babysitter. Okay, incest. His parents, Jim Bob and Michelle, publicly confirmed the allegations, but they defended their son, telling Fox News, quote, "He was just curious about girls and he had gone in and just basically touched them under their clothes while they were sleeping. They didn't even know he had done it," unquote. Jesus, so it's not a problem, is it? That's incest. That's a problem. And you should not be condoning such things or saying it's not a problem. He's openly admitted his transgressions. He and his wife Anna, 28, that's a 10. 2 plus 8 is a 10 or a 1, which I was telling you about that as well a week or two ago. Announced that they're expecting their 5th children, all under the age of 10, another 1. Okay, and they're all with M names, Mackenzie, Michael, Marcus, and Meredith. So he's going to be forced to give his testimony in front of his pregnant wife, assuming she will be present in the courtroom. So all of this is about having incest and pedophilia become acceptable, and as well as having sex with other people who are not your spouse, I'll say, but of course that's becoming more and more normal these days. All is normal, it's accepted, it's forgiven, it doesn't matter. So anyway, you'll see, it will continue to grow. Nordstrom is charging $425 for dirty jeans. Last week or two I told you about the jeans that zipped in the back, the butt jeans, B-U-T-T. Now we have dirty jeans, mud-caked jeans to satisfy all your superfluous money-spending needs. Who wants dirty mud-caked jeans? Doesn't make sense. We'll find out. Called Barracuda Straight Leg Jeans. The heavily distressed medium blue denim jeans in a comfortable straight leg fit embody rugged Americana workwear that's seen some hard-working action with a crackled, caked-on, muddy coating that shows you're not afraid to get down and dirty. I'm sorry. Doesn't work for me. Don't buy those jeans. Icelandic farmers find real-life unicorn on their land, and I told you again last week about the unicorn in the Starbucks coffee that was there available for like a week. The symbolism, unicorn has a lot of astral symbolism to it in hyperspace. If you go higher frequency, it's about protection. So apparently during, let's see, where was it? Born last spring, there was a ram who had 2 horns fused together at the top of his head, so this Icelandic couple named the creature unicorn. So the article says, quote, "It's not a perfect unicorn since the horn splits toward the top, but it's probably as close as we'll ever get to the real thing." So anyway, thought that was interesting. And then speaking of big butts, B-U-T-T, Kendall Jenner has a fear. And so if Kendall Jenner has a fear, you need to listen. Kendall Jenner's fear is sleep paralysis. Apparently she revealed that she's afraid to go to sleep because of a condition called sleep paralysis. She says, "I wake up in the middle of the night, I looked it up online, and it's a weird thing called sleep paralysis." Experts say that sleep paralysis is frightening because it occurs when a person experiences 2 states, dreaming and muscle paralysis, that normally occur during the rapid eye or REM stage of sleep. While a person is dreaming, the brain paralyzes the muscles of the body so that a person cannot act out the dreams. This means that the dreams are technically hallucinations and they're just as vivid as anything you'd see when you are awake. During an episode of sleep paralysis, all a person can do is stay calm and realize that it will pass soon. This really only works if you've had an episode or two before and know what to expect. These attacks can be quite scary to experience, especially if you've never had one before, unquote. Now, I want you to know that sleep paralysis happens during programming and during abductions. And I don't necessarily say alien abductions because not all abductions are alien. If you have taken our courses and read our material, you will know that. So I think it's interesting that now the Jenners are talking about, or Kardashian, I guess they're related. No, Kendall Jenner. They're all related. Anyway, when she's talking about being afraid of sleep paralysis. And then right after that, there's a book that's being promoted called The Demon on Your Chest and Other Terrifying Tales of Sleep Paralysis. So what did I tell you? During programming, during abductions, now they're taking sleep paralysis and they're tying it into demon, which again has to do with New World religion. So keep that in mind as we move forward, because all these things are tied together and you just have to know how to pull things out and put them together. The automotive news says that the Dodge Demon should be banned. Apparently there's a new car out. The Dodge Challenger SRT Demon was bathed in a scathing editorial regarding the muscle car titled "Keep the Dodge Demon Off Our Roads." The outlet called the 808 horsepower Demon inherently dangerous to the common safety of motorists, while admitting that there are more powerful and even faster vehicles available from other automakers that are rightly street legal, unquote. So why do they want this one off the road, right? The Demon was designed to be the quickest car in the world. It has several drag racing style features never before offered on a factory production car. The editorial continues to say that the Demon is the result of a sequence of misguided corporate choices that places bragging rights ahead of public safety. It spits on the industry's goal of improving safety while knowingly placing motorists in danger. It goes on to quote Ralph Nader, saying that the Demon is unsafe at any speed. Well, guess what? Everybody's going to want one now, right? So we're going to get Demons on our road. And you know what? They're going to make a limited 2018 model. Only 3,000 are planned that will be built for the U.S. market and only 300 in Canada. So people are going to want this vehicle. So we have Demons on your chest and sleep paralysis. We have the Dodge Demon out there. And interestingly, while I was writing my notes on this story, in the background, something was running about the demonization of political candidates. But I went back, it was a video, and they just were kind of cycling through. I couldn't find that one again. But watch for the word demon. That's not going to go away. And speaking of demons, did you hear about the mural of Michelle Obama, what was painted on a building in the south side of Chicago? Apparently, she is clothed as an Egyptian queen, and the artist who painted the mural, Chris Devins, was criticized for the work, but not for political reasons. It seems he plagiarized the photo from a young art student named Jalila Mesfin. She's an Ethiopian art student who posted a very similar portrait online, and apparently he's now saying that he will pay some kind of rights to her. I don't know, but the point is we have a picture of Michelle Obama in the south side of Chicago here in the U.S. clothed as an Egyptian queen. So again, to me, more New World religion stuff. And twins, Arkansas carrying out its first double execution in the U.S. since 2000. And of course, I tell you that the twinning is an Illuminati thing in programming and in New World religion. And then the article itself goes on to say the twin executions followed a flurry of unsuccessful appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court and the Arkansas Supreme Court. So some kind of sacrifice going on here. And speaking of twins, I found a website now called twinstrangers.net, where you can sign up to find your twin anywhere in the world. You load up your facial features and there is a recognition that matches your facial features to the facial features of anybody else who's signed up. So I imagine people will do that. And again, we're going to have more twins running around, so to speak. And then why are the global elite so obsessed with twins? Now, I have told you this before, so has Stewart. We talked about this specifically in our last September Spectacular. I'm not sure if he wrote about it in True World History. We have so much material out there, but if you haven't read True World history. This talks a lot about the true story of Emmanuel, Blue Blood, which I brought with me. So these are both good if you want to know what's really going on in the world and more information on the Illuminati. Anyway, we told you that in Rennes-le-Château in France, which we went to, there are statues that depict Mary and Joseph each holding a baby. And of course, the real name of Jesus is Emmanuel. And we also have told you that there is supposedly a good baby and a bad baby. And this has been verified onto Stewart in some of his travels from very high up people. And the evil baby is the one that the Illuminati worship. And of course, the Christian worship supposedly the good Jesus / Emmanuel. And isn't that interesting that the front runner in the French presidential elections name is Emmanuel? So keep that in mind when it comes to 20. And I told you I had a lot of news, but we're getting through it. There's a lot about. The next thing I want to tell you about is the mass population experimentation. Between the 40s and the 80s, there were miners in Ontario that went through a strange ritual at the start of every workday. They'd take off their street clothes, they'd enter a room where their work clothes hung. As soon as the doors were closed, then they would watch the room fill with black powder that they were told to inhale. This aluminum dust was known as McIntyre powder. They claimed that it was tested on a small number of animals and was believed to help miners from getting lung disease. Like I said, it's just ridiculous. Nowadays, the aluminum dust is known to be a neurotoxin in the bloodstream. So there's now a group led by the concerned daughter of a miner that had neurological disorders that is compelling scientists to study whether there's a link. The woman, Janice Martel, says of her father, small pieces of him get taken away every day, and she is leading the effort to round up the health histories of miners forced to inhale the dust. She's found 7 miners with ALS out of just over 300, where in the general population it only occurs twice per 100,000. And then a public health expert says, quote, "This number jumps out at you. This might be telling us something." It's like, really? "I felt mad," says a retired miner, "a sick feeling that we were used like guinea pigs." Yes, absolutely. But, you know, it's nothing new. They use the mass population as guinea pigs in a billion different ways. But I'm just pointing this one out to you. And then we have the artificial womb for the baby lamb. Did you see that one? That was all over the internet. Now, somebody brought this to my attention, one of my Facebook friends, who she said, you realize that they're not calling this anymore an incubator. What do they usually do for premature babies? They put them in incubators. They're actually calling this an artificial womb for premature babies. The researchers are saying that it suggests a first of its kind. Is now, here it says incubator, but they changed that. That so closely mimics a human woman that it just might work. Apparently today, as you know, premature infants weighing as little as a pound are hooked up to ventilators and other machines inside incubators. So this womb-like environment is aiming for a more gentle solution, and their aim is to treat the baby like a growing fetus than a newborn, with a hope of giving it a better chance of survival. The fetus floats in amniotic fluid inside a mother's uterus, so now they have this fluid-filled transparent container to simulate this. The human testing, it claims, is still 3 to 5 years away, and the team is already in discussion with the FDA. The researchers tested 5 lambs whose biological age was equivalent to a 23-week human preemie, and 3 were a little older, and they all appeared to grow normally, but then it said most of the lambs were euthanized for further study to look at their organ development, but one was bottle weaned and is now more than a year old. So, you know, as we tell you, if it's out there and they're telling you about it, that it's existed for a long time, and we're moving closer toward the artificial womb, which again, I have been telling you about for a long time. And we're getting close to the end. If Stewart was here, he'd go, finally. Anyway, the last story that I'm going to tell you about, no, actually I'll tell you a couple. I have 2, some little tiny. One is called Mosaic Sushi, which is an amazing food trend from Japan, which to me, again, it looks like programming cubes. So it's about sushi platters that come in squares now. So it's cubic sushi. And Clear Coffee. So I'll give you some good news. Clear Coffee, that's been launched. It's called CLRCFF. 2 entrepreneurs have created a system to produce transparent coffee from Arabica with taste and caffeine. The recipe is secret, but it is clear, and therefore if you are afraid of teeth stains, it says you want to try clear coffee. So then the very last story about weed weddings. Now, as you know, a lot of people have been advocating for legal marijuana. And of course, a lot of states here in the U.S. have passed it. It's now gaining popularity in other countries throughout the world. And I don't have a problem using a lot of these things for medicinal reasons. But I do have an issue when it comes to altering the mind, because I don't believe anything should be used to alter the mind other than your own thought process. So, weed weddings are the latest trend. And of course, once they put it out here, that makes them the latest trend, doesn't it? It says in states where marijuana is legal, such as Colorado, California, Washington, and Oregon, to name such a few. And last year, the first Cannabis Wedding Expo took place in Denver, Colorado. And on the last day of April, by the time you watch this, the Cannabis Wedding Expo will have taken place in San Francisco. Now, what does that mean? Apparently, that you can, if you want to have a cannabis wedding, that you can hire professional bud tenders to handle a cannabis-style open bar. The bud tender will typically stand next to the regular bar and offer up a selection of all different strains of gourmet marijuana. He or she will educate you in all the strains and help you achieve the type of high you're going for. Then you can try out the different strains and immerse yourself in the experience, and you may even be able to ask the bartender to work with the bud tender to create a marijuana drink for you. And then every table at your wedding can have a cannabis theme. The centerpiece can have bouquets that include bud plants. Each table can have its own personal supply of weed to share and enjoy together. The wedding planner can place a bong or glass pipe to smoke out of at every table. And then they can also engrave those with the bride and groom's names. Then you can hire a cannabis-educated chef to create gourmet edibles. But since edibles can be quite potent, the bride and groom will have to pre-plan a great number or a set number of edibles that each guest will receive. And then you'll be too busy with your weed to abuse alcohol, although they said you could mix the two. So I don't exactly understand why they're telling you that. And then the guests are less likely to get violently wasted. They'll just be regularly high, I guess. And then you can take home a cannabis wedding favor, such as a custom labeled edible, a weed lollipop, or a mini mason jar housing a few gourmet joints. So apparently there are a lot of wedding planners jumping on board, somehow that doesn't surprise me, to plan a weed-friendly wedding. So, a lot of things that you can do in the world. I really suggest you not participate and you work on your hyperspace oversoul techniques to open up your own mind and not trust other people, places, or things to do that for you. Stewart and I teach you to be your own teacher. We teach you how to be your own healer. We teach you how to access your own source. We don't do it for you, we teach you. So if you don't have these books for your library, Decoding Your Life, Universal Law, The Hyperspace Helper, these are very, very basic foundational books for what we teach. It's really all you need. Join our blogs, less than $1 a day, and you get fantastic personal support. Hyperspace Plus, Healing Archetypes and Symbols. These also will help you with your self-healing. I mentioned these before. If you're interested in True World History, Blue Blood, True World History, both of these will help fill in a lot of gaps. Plus, we will be doing updates on these at our September Spectacular. If you're interested in that week-long class, you might want to get your name on the list. If you need a payment plan, you can contact Patricia, customer support at expansions.com. Don't allow yourself to be programmed, okay? Don't allow yourself to be personally programmed or mass mind control. If you suffer from sleep paralysis, you might be the victim of abduction, you might be the victim of mass or specific programming. These two books will help you. We also do programming scans, so if you want us to take a look at you, we will. It's up to you to decide what you want to do with those reports, let's say, but we will give you what our take is on your specific frequency. Now, my trip to Italy is now closed. So if you missed the deadline, I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm going to be going back next year or not. But anyway, we're going to have a great group that's going June 1st through the 8th up into the paths of the ancient Waldensians, and we are going to be visiting with my Waldensian family. We're going to be staying at a lovely inn in the mountains, and we are going to have a lovely time. So I hope you're on the list, and if you're not, I'm sorry you've missed out. Stewart is in Germany right now, so you may be with him. He has still, I believe, some openings for his personal consultations. I'm not exactly sure if those are filled yet, but I know the next couple days are, and I think he might have a few left on his last day, but I'm not positive. And then in October, Big Bend and Carlsbad Caverns National Parks Tour. We are going to be going to into the inner earth through Carlsbad Caverns. We're going to be visiting the UFO Museum in Roswell. We're going to White Sands. We're going all over the place. So it's going to be amazing, amazing trip. We have these brochures reproduced for you on our website, expansions.com. Like our Facebook page, like, comment, and share. Like our YouTube videos, like, comment, and share. Get everybody to know that they do not have to participate in this nuttiness. And if you work on your hyperspace oversoul tools, you don't have to be programmed, you don't have to react. You can read for yourself what's going on out there. You can see the trends for yourself. So I am just here to help you understand what's going on out there so you can be in control of your own mind so nobody else can control you. Thank you very much for joining me. Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow, expansions.com.